Hey y'all, welcome to TXC Tells All, or welcome back if you're one of our subscribers. Y'all, it's been a minute. I haven't been on here in a while. Life has just been lifing, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Work's been busy, life's family life, everything's been busy. But I do miss y'all. I miss these conversations. Lots of things have happened in the media and things that we usually touch on here. So I do miss y'all. Hopefully, some people will join us in here. We know we have our regulars and we always appreciate y'all. But I miss you guys. I miss talking about these different serious topics with y'all. If you're looking at the thumbnail, you know what we are going to get into today. But before we get in to that and all the new developments, check in, make sure you say hi in the chat box. Of course, I want this to be interactive. I have many opinions about this case. I'm sure you do too. So before, we get into the nuts and bolts of that, I just wanted to say, hey, hope everybody's doing okay. Say hello to me in the chat box. Let me know how you're doing. And like always, I just want to say, honestly, the other day something popped up on my phone, and it was basically saying a milestone that me and Larita had previously for this channel. We had 855 followers, and I remember being so excited about that. And now we have over 6,000 followers. So before we get into it, I just want to say I appreciate y'all, everybody who tunes in, comments on here, comments on our IG, and if you don't follow us there, make sure you do that. But we appreciate all of you, our subscribers, people who, just hop in and comment on the videos. We appreciate you because we can't have the channel without you guys. So now let's talk about Ajike Owens. Some of you, if you have been following on the news, have heard about this tragic case. She's a 35-year-old mother out of Marion County, Florida, and she was gunned down, shot to death by Susan Lorincz in her area. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of the case, but it's a tragedy. So now 4 children are without their mother because, quite frankly, of a racist murder. I mean, that's my opinion, and obviously there might be some people on here that disagree with that. We'll get into what the state had to say about it and what charges are actually being brought against Susan, who is the shooter in this case. But it's a tragedy. I mean, for her family, for her mother, for her children. I mean, one of her sons actually saw his mother get murdered, and it's really sad that situations like this are still happening. We see them day in, day out. As some of you may know, I'm an employment discrimination attorney. So I deal with employment discrimination cases all the time, and we still have race discrimination cases that happen every single day. So Sharon, hey, thanks for joining in. I'm glad you're joining us. I'm looking forward to, see what you have to say about this topic as well. But so in the news, you might have heard the story, and I want to, before we get into what the state attorney what charges he has brought against Susan and what charges he has not brought against Susan, I want you to I want to give you a backdrop of where this incident happened and what happened. So the incident happened in Marion County, Florida. Just a little background on what Marion County is like. It's about 75 minutes southwest of Jacksonville. So some of you might not be familiar with Marion County, but a lot of people know Jacksonville. So I just wanted to I know sometimes it's good to have an idea of where you're talking about to understand context as well. So we're in Marion County. I've never been there. So I wanted to look up the county before, as I was doing my research to get on here today. Marion County is 81.6% white and 13.7% Black. So do with that information as you want, but I think it's important to give a little background on the area and, the type of area it is, the makeup, the demographic of the area to kind of understand. I think it does lend to understanding as to what happened here and why. So we have Ajike Owens. Like I said, she was 35 years old when she was gunned down by Susan Lorincz. And I was gonna give a recap of what happened here, but her mom, so Miss Owens' mom, Miss Owens is the victim, actually was on The View pretty recently, and she was able to give an account of exactly what happened. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys and play that because, quite frankly, I just think she did a really good job, unfortunately, of having to relay how her daughter was murdered. So let me share that with you guys and play that. All right.
On Friday, June 2nd, the kids were outside playing in an open field, a privately owned open field, as kids do. My 9-year-old grandson forgot his tablet. He went back to retrieve it, and Susan Lorincz was there to harass him. She called him racial slurs, said, "This is not the Underground Railroad, you slaves." She threw a skate at him, broke his tablet. So he did what any normal kid would do, and he went home and told his mother. My daughter Ajike and my 9-year-old grandson went across the street to ask questions. She was met with a bullet through a locked metal door with her 9-year-old son standing next to her. My 12-year-old grandson had to make the necessary calls for help.
Okay. So that's what happened. If you have a comment about that, I would love to hear it. But imagine that you have 4 children. She lives in this neighborhood. Her children usually play along with other children, because I read articles that said it wasn't just her children that would play in this field. It was other children as well. And the field is located near Susan's home. But anyway, you have children, you're a mom, they're playing in this field. Your child comes home and tells you that this woman is harassing him. You heard her say she was calling, and she admitted. She actually told detectives that she called victims' children racist slurs, not only that day on June 2nd, but also in the months leading up to Ajike's death, admitting that she used the N-word and that she said, like Ajike's mom said, this isn't the Underground Railroad, slave. So these terms and these things will become important as we talk about what second-degree murder, which is the charge that was not brought against Susan, what elements make up that charge, and why the state said they didn't bring the charge, which doesn't really make complete sense to me when I break down what happened in the months leading up to Ajike's death, Susan's state of mind based on the things she was saying. So all of that plays into this case and why I personally think a second-degree murder charge should have been brought against Susan, but it hasn't been. So it wasn't just Ajike goes to Susan's door and is belligerent or is attacking. She was unarmed, and I think that's a really important point. She was unarmed, and Susan actually shot her through the door and killed her. So there's a lot of questions around this threat of, Susan felt unsafe, or she felt attacked. She felt like she needed to operate based on self-defense. But based on the information that I've read and that I've heard from the mom, from the son, it just doesn't add up. So it's just really a tragedy. Not only is she dead, but her son is going to need serious mental health therapy for seeing his mother get gunned down in that manner. Sharon said, tragic, that woman wanted to hurt someone. And I absolutely agree. And that's what's so funny is not the right word, but that's what's so interesting about this case is that the decision was made by State Attorney William Gladson. And I want to read it. He said there was insufficient evidence to file a murder charge against Lorincz, that's Susan Lorincz. Charging Lorincz with murder would require prosecutors to provide evidence of hatred, spite, ill will, or evil intent toward the victim at the time of the killing. So that was the statement that he made as to the basis or the reason why he didn't think a second-degree murder charge or a murder charge against Lorincz would be successful. But I mean, I'm not a criminal attorney, and I hope, criminal attorneys, maybe if you're watching this, anybody who has experience in that field can chime in, because maybe I'm just not seeing it as a civil litigation lawyer. But if Susan, leading up to this event, was making racial slurs against the children of the woman that she shot, so a Black woman, Black children playing in a field, she's yelling at them. She also threw a skate at the child who witnessed his mother, the child who forgot his iPad in the field. As you heard Ajike's mom say, she threw a skate at him and broke the iPad. So that was kind of what initiated this. But she was willing to be violent towards a Black child. So all these things leading up to it. And then State Attorney Glasson says that a murder charge will require evidence of hatred. Tell me if I'm missing something here. But she admits to calling them the N-word, admits to saying this isn't the Underground Railroad, you slave, but there's lack of evidence of hatred, spite, or ill will. I'm a little confused. Sharon said maybe they think the manslaughter charge will stick. And that's a good point. We'll get to that. When I read what manslaughter means under Florida law, I was like, that definitely should work. And maybe they just want to go with the charges that they feel like they'll be the most successful in. One thing that the state attorney said is, I'm aware of the desire of the family and some community members that the defendant be charged with second-degree murder. My obligation as state attorney is to follow the law in each case that I prosecute. And then he said, understandably, emotions run high, particularly with senseless violent crimes. However, I cannot allow any decision to be influenced by public sentiment, angry phone calls, or further threats of violence as I have received in this case. And he was saying basically, I know what it looks like, but I'm not going to be influenced by, the media. I know Al Sharpton, and I'm not going to play that for you, but I watched it earlier. Al Sharpton had said, this should be elevated to a hate crime, which I could see grounds for that as well. But he was pushing for second-degree murder along with the Owens family attorney. His name is Anthony Thomas. At the bond hearing for Susan, he pushed for second-degree murder as well. But like Sharon said, manslaughter might just be the charge that the state attorney thinks might stick more. Or, is it just another form of racism instead of them actually trying to prove second-degree murder? They're just going with manslaughter because of who the victim is and what she looks like, and who the accused shooter is and what she looks like. There's always these questions here. I wanted to read under the actual Florida statute what second-degree murder is. And it reads, the unlawful killing of a human being when perpetrated by any act imminently dangerous to another and evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life, although without any premeditated design to affect the death of any particular individual. So with second-degree murder, it does not require proof of the defendant's intent to kill. So that's why, in my opinion, I feel like without the necessity of intent to kill with second-degree murder, I thought based on these facts that there was enough here for the state attorney to feel like he could prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. But obviously he did not agree. Now with manslaughter, if I read that to you, and I will, you probably will say, well, that's definitely the case here. And we'll have to see. We're very early. She's just been charged. We're very early in the case. We'll have to see what happens. But under Florida law, manslaughter is the prosecutor must show that the defendant acted with culpable negligence. That's for involuntary manslaughter. And then Florida statutes define culpable negligence as a disregard for human life while engaging in wanton or reckless behavior. The state may be able to prove involuntary manslaughter by showing the defendant's recklessness or lack of care when handling a dangerous instrument or weapon, or while engaging in a range of other activities that could lead to death if performed recklessly. Florida state laws also establish involuntary manslaughter if the prosecutor shows that the defendant used excessive force during self-defense or the defense of another person. So it'll be interesting to see if, the thought process of the state attorney general is that Susan used excessive force, even if she did think she was acting in self-defense. Her taking the action that she did and shooting Ajike through the door was excessive force under the circumstances. So it's still, this case is horrible in so many different ways. Like I said, I still honestly disagree with the charges that are being brought. They decided to bring the charge of manslaughter, and there's one other charge. So she's being charged with one count of manslaughter with a firearm and one count of assault. She faces up to 30 years in prison, which I don't know how I feel about that either. 30 years in prison. You took the life of a 35-year-old mom that have 4 children that now have no mother. I mean, her children are young. I think one son is 9, the other one was 12, and I'm not sure the ages of the other 2. But I don't know, 30 years in prison is enough, and that's the max under the charges that were brought against her. So just a tragic situation. I wanted to just get on here and talk a little bit about it. When it first happened on June 2nd, I wanted to get on here and talk to you guys about it and just bring attention to it, because honestly, I felt like we heard about it when it happened at the beginning of the month, and then it got real quiet. And I remember, in some other cases where they have been elements of racism and, just horrible situations, there's media attention. And I think there was some here. Benjamin Crump, I know, has gotten on this case, and he brings a lot of attention to cases like this. Obviously, Al Sharpton. But I don't know about you guys if you heard about the case back in the beginning of June, but then it got real quiet for a while. And I started to get concerned, like, I wonder if the media is not really picking up on this case. And I think, media attention does help in circumstances like this, protests and all of that. This is a Black woman that was clearly victimized, and I wanted to get on here and at least bring some attention to it, have some discussions about it. Of course, obviously, none of that is going to bring back Miss Owens to her kids. Nothing's going to do that. Even if Susan gets charged, that family will still have to suffer through the loss of their loved one. But just some justice needs to happen. Do I think the charges of manslaughter and assault are justified? It's better than nothing, that's for sure. But I really think the charge of murder should have been brought here. But obviously, a charge is one thing and a conviction is another. The prosecutor might be focused on what he thinks is a viable conviction or a viable charge to get a conviction. So let's see what happens. But if you're watching the replay, definitely comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are on this case. I'll definitely do an update, in a few weeks or a few months when we get more developments in the case and more information. Thank y'all for tuning in. And as always, make sure you check out our playlist. If you haven't been on our channel in a while, check out some of our new videos, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good week.